The world is very different than just 12 months ago. Today, I'm lucky to be joined by somebody who's been on the front lines of the greatest innovational shift in the history of human beings. Welcome to this week's edition of Storage Unlocked, brought to you by our friends at PB Brown General Contractors. I'm your host, Thaddeus Campbell. He is the Chief Intelligence Officer at 10 Federal, newly minted back in April, the first such position in the self-storage industry. Of course, came out of NVIDIA, where he spent a few years working directly on the front lines of AI. Chris Taylor, want to thank you so much for taking some time out of your schedule to come and join us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great to meet you again.
Nice to see you. And the first thing I want to ask is, now you're a couple months into the time at 10 Federal. I know you had, and we talked a couple months ago when you first got there and aired some short clips on the show then talking about you joining them. You had spent some time consulting with them previous to jumping in. So it wasn't like you just all of a sudden came into storage without any idea of what you were getting in. But one of the fascinating things you said to me then, and what I'd like to have you expand upon now, is you didn't really see yourself leaving the AI world that you were deeply involved in NVIDIA and going into storage. Instead, it was like, no, I'm still in AI. Talk to me about that concept and how it's translated in the last couple months at 10 Federal.
Yeah. I guess I'll start with the NVIDIA way. So one of the things that 10 Federal did, our VP of technology, Brian Oakley, he had a sight ahead of his mind. So every piece of code you wrote at NVIDIA had to run on any piece of hardware they'd ever created and any piece of hardware they were going to create. So there was modularity in the business logic and then a slight translation layer to the hardware. And what our team here at 10 Federal, prior to me joining, was Brian led the effort, was they had this unified data platform. And basically it was an aggregation of data to help the data science model that 10 Federal runs to lead their charge in a lot of the things they do. And that turns out to be the exact platform you also need to utilize AI. The more information aggregated into a single layer that AI can sit on top of and use the information to make decisions at rapid paces with more information than the human mind can concept is where we really, lead the charge.
It's fascinating to me, and obviously 10 Federal is well known for being a technology-driven platform. Self-storage as a whole has not been known for that. We've seen a really big shift, I think, personally, in the last 6 months. Public Storage is the one that kind of led the charge in their Q4 earnings report to start this year. And then when they had the merger call announcing the acquisition, not merger, the acquisition call announcing the acquisition of NSA, repeated again in the Q2 earnings report, in the Q1 earnings report. We haven't had the Q2 earnings report, but they've really talked about PS 4.0 and how technology is driving a lot of the NOI they've been able to create over the last couple of years. So it's fascinating for me that 10 Federal was kind of ahead of this curve, because self-storage has certainly not been known as a bastion of technology. For you, how important was that, as you were obviously making a massive career change going from NVIDIA to 10 Federal, that they were already on that path?
Yeah, I mean, one of the anecdotal stories people like to hear is, so I pivoted from autonomous vehicles to the data center chips at NVIDIA. And when I told some of my colleagues there that I was leaving NVIDIA to come work in self-storage, they asked, they were like, SSD, NAND, M.2, like what kind of storage are we talking about? And I was like, no, like the physical garage spaces. And they looked at me dumbfounded. They're, what? I was told it was probably one of the largest industry transfers they've ever seen. But one of the neat things is, you know, 10 Federal has this intricate desire to rapidly iterate. They will build fast, fail fast, fix fast. And so one of the exciting things is, like, I was brought in and I was told, like, listen, if you have ideas in technology that you think you can help us do, just go. Like, we will support you. And if you fail and you think you can pivot and carry on forward, like, we're all about that. We want to try and be the cutting edge. Um, so 10 Federal, I mean, it's just been a dream so far. It is a wild transition. I went from, the most cutting edge technology on planet Earth to renting garage spaces. But it is far and above some of the most fun, exciting times I've had.
I want to talk to you. One of the things that jumped out at me when we talked a couple months ago, you talked about not applying AI to one aspect of the business, right? but rather layering AI over the whole thing and building a whole system of AI throughout every aspect of the company. Talk to me a little bit about what that looks like in a self-storage operation and the different aspects of the business that you roll in. You talked about that aggregating data in one place and layering AI on top of it. Talk about what that looks like in a storage business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Physical
So like,
storage, by the way. I thought that's hilarious, right? Not data storage. We're not building the data centers here.
yeah, no. One of the examples I like to give is like Andrew Cabranos, our president. He has to go ask different departments for information, right? He'll go to ops, he'll go to technology, he'll go to accounting, he'll go to marketing, and he needs all this data from all these different places. Well, previously, what that required was the head of that department to go find the information, get it from the people below, aggregate it into a report, and return that information to Andrew. Well, now if we aggregate all that data into our flat unified data platform, Andrew can go in directly and get that information from all of the departments simultaneously, aggregate all that data himself, and have AI utilize it in whatever way he wants to see it. So it's just the immediate access of data across the entire company makes the ability to make decisions just like that much more profound and fast.
It's fascinating to me, and I know you're even newer in the industry than I am. I've only been in storage for 5 years, but when I got into storage in 2021, the big message was it's still very mom and pop. The big REITs only own a very small percentage. At that time, it was like 15%. It's gone up since then, and depending on how you calculate that data, what size of facilities, it may be way bigger than that now. But the fact is, the industry is consolidating very quickly. How critical do you guys find it to have this technology backbone and have the AI power to be able to compile data and not only just compile it and hold it, but interpret it in order to kind of win this race that we're seeing it, right? When the first biggest company buys the third biggest company, a couple of years after the second biggest company built the then third biggest company, it's consolidating very quickly. How critical is this tool going to be to the folks that actually make it in this industry?
It's an interesting concept. Like I'll give you an example. Our VP of investments, Ian, he's been incredible with AI. He is like one of the most curious people when it comes to AI. And so there's a team of 3 of them for our investment team, but they have like 40 or 50 agents that run full time and help them underwrite deals. So while he's a team of 3, there's really a team of 40. And so they can do things 24/7, 365. They can look at information, they can look at data, they can help decide if a deal's good or bad, they can help underwrite it. So then it just gets to the point where like they're not doing the boring information of like, oh, let me look at this number and let me compare it to this number. What they get to do is they let AI do all of that information. And it brings the full deal to them that they are then the human in the loop that get to decide if it's good or bad. And then they can present it to the leadership team if it's good or bad or anything like that.
You just answered one of my future questions early in the show, and it opens up a bunch of other questions, which I want to come back to. We're going to take a quick break and hear from our sponsor. I'll be back with Chris Taylor, Chief Intelligence Officer at 10 Federal, right after this break.
Storage Unlocked is brought to you by PB Brown. Over $1 billion in ground-up construction delivered, from single-story to Manhattan high-rise, institutional grade, engineered for performance, and designed to stand out. Great storage catches the consumer's eye, drives traffic, and helps lease-up happen faster. From Manhattan to Miami, California to Hawaii, PB Brown is the GC to trust for your multi-million-dollar storage development.
So you just brought up this fascinating road that I want to go down about agents. The question that I want to ask here is, people are going to get left behind if they don't jump on board with this. Is that safe to say? When you have somebody who's a chief investment officer who can have agents finding sites, agent underwriting sites, agents looking for all those things that we used to have to spend time looking for as far as wetland studies, topography, you can build agents to do all that. If you're not diving into this, is there a way for somebody to keep up if they don't start adopting?
Well, in the words of Jensen Huang, no. It was a top-down directive. You either use it or you go find something else to do. And I mean, there's the big picture where your agents and skills and everything's utilized. But I mean, break it down to the very simple, right? You bring it down to the everyone's job. If you think about your job throughout the day, it's a bunch of different pieces that you're putting together through an 8-hour day. And then if you look at that over time, how many of those pieces are repeatable, right? And if you just look at a week of time and you are able to use AI to help automate 25%, well, that's 25% of your time you're getting back to do your actual job. everyone has parts of their job that they do that aren't like the most fun or the thing they like to do. So one of the first things I did when joining 10 Fed is I went around and talked to everybody. I sat with every department. I sat with almost everyone in the building. I talked about all the things that are hard, that take time. And, one of the first things I did is I worked with the accounting department and I automated 150 hours of work a month. And it's now done in like, I don't know, 8 seconds or something. But, you just think about each person's job and the boring, monotonous parts that they do over and over again. And you think about the building blocks. People think of AI as a top down. Eventually, that's where it's going to go. But truthfully, you have to start at the very bottom. You build each skill independently and very modularly. You ensure that it works over time. Then, when you have multiple, then you build an agentic workflow which utilizes those skills to complete a task. You have multiple agentic workflows which complete certain tasks. And then you have an orchestration layer, which is in charge of all of those agents, which is completing a task, which is from a skill. And over time, you're building the foundation to the top. And over time, as you do that, you then get the ability to make a fully agentic orchestration layer, all these fancy words you hear people say.
It, I want to stay in a little micro on Ted Federal for a second, but you just opened up a door that I want to pull out a little bit, and we'll do that in a second. But the question I want to ask, obviously, 10 Federal started as a company that really kind of hung their hat on remote management, the ability to go manage a facility without necessarily having a full-time on-site manager of that property. I asked a question on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago, and I was actually surprised that the answer wasn't more one-sided. I said, hey, are we going to see a place where primary market, infill, multi-story self-storage is run fully remote, where there isn't necessarily, of course, there's always going to be somebody on site to take care of repairs and things that need to happen that way, but not having a manager sitting in the lobby all the time, even 8 hours a day, waiting for somebody. And the split was like 50-50. And I'm intrigued to ask you, and of course, where 10 Federal's coming from, are we on a track with what AI is capable of doing, not only as far as accounting and collecting data, but we're seeing AI voice agents now able to answer the phone, be able to answer questions, take payments, even sign people up in certain instances. Are we on a track where you guys expect 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you'll be able to run any facility in the country remotely?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think part of that, the reason you probably saw 50-50 is the the people that are answering, right? So my mom would love to have somebody in a facility because she barely knows how to operate her phone. I mean, signing into Amazon on her iPad, I mean, I get so frustrated. I'm like, just follow the instructions. But for someone like her, she wants to come in and a legacy operator where there's someone that can show her a storage unit, show her how to unlock the
Yeah.
lock. That's amazing. But then you get my nieces who are, 12, 13 years old, and they don't want to talk to anybody. If they can just scan a QR code
100%.
and rent a unit and never have to talk to anybody, that's better. And a lot of people come up to a storage facility, they're on the phone talking to somebody, they have a truck full of stuff, they just need to rent a unit, they want to do it fast, it may be at night. I do believe we are getting to the point where not having an unmanned facility, not having anyone site, and letting the customer, we tailor the customer to their experience. Tailor the experience to the customer. Sorry, I said that backwards.
Yeah.
Will be the way of the future. And, down that road, I can't talk about it too much, but 10 Federal has some cool things coming down the pipe that I think will help, push them even farther ahead.
Looking forward to when you can make those public, having you come on and share with us for sure. I told you before we went on, I'm not going to dig too deep on proprietary stuff. I'm grateful you're joining to have this conversation to begin with. I'll piggyback on what you said. One of the reasons I believe so strongly that that's going to change rapidly. Big cities tend to attract younger people. I have a 19-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old daughter, a 25-year-old son. All three of them would rather not talk to somebody. If they can do a process without having to have you, in fact, my 14-year-old will get anxiety when I have her run into a store to go pick something up, not even pay for it. Like we already ordered it online. She's just got to go in and pick it up. So to your point, seeing those generational shifts. And of course, we've seen the shift in who's using self-storage, right? Millennials and Gen Z now making up a massive percentage of the people that are renting. And of course, I laugh at this because you grew up, born in the 90s. You've never lived without a computer and internet in your life. I spent the first 20 some years. I think I got a computer. I was 26 years old. So having seen that shift, it's easy for me to see a way where that becomes the truth. What I want to ask you next is you've talked about this idea of layering and using AI as kind of an infrastructure base to build everything that's going on in a company. Do you think people are still maybe viewing AI a little too much as software, as like a product to go use, as opposed to being able to use it as a functional tool across the whole business?
Yeah, it's a good question. I want to be clear. It's good at all the above, right? We are literally at the point in time where you have the aggregation of all intelligence that's ever been created on planet Earth within an LLM model that you can ask anything and it can go look it up. So you can use it for helping you write an email. I do. You can use it to help you create PowerPoints. I do. You can help it write code for you. I do. You can help it do any type of decisions when it comes to design, code, outside, what flowers you want. You want to ask a question about it can do anything. I have yet to find something that I'm better at than AI if I can correctly phrase what I'm trying to do. And so what that means is that not only can you use it independently for tasks, but you should be able to use it across the spectrum of all the things you need to get done. And the hard part is not developing within a silo. So like you don't want your marketing department developing an entire, agentic framework that runs in just the marketing department, right? Because some of that can be reused across other departments. So you just have to make sure that you're doing it in such a modular way that it can be integrated elsewhere and in whatever type of platform you're using in the company.
Love that conversation. All right. I told you I was going to pull back a little bit on an earlier question that you gave me, and I want to kind of backtrack a little bit to move forward here, which is about what a corporate structure looks like. You're going to have this situation where you have agentic agents doing different aspects of the company. And I fully believe if you're not doing that in 5 years, you're just not going to compete in a business sense. Are there places that human beings still need to be in this structure today in your vision? What are those areas that humans are really necessary in order to make this work?
I'm gonna cherry pick a comment made by Jensen Huang, my old boss. Is this isn't a time to get rid of people. This is a time to hire more people. So you will have to change the skill set in which you excel at, right? You used to have, I used to write embedded driver code. Like I was modifying bits for electrical signals on a circuit board. I no longer do that. I went from that, then I went to an architect of software. So where I could architect an entire software agentic framework and then I could have AI write it. We're getting to the point where you pivot and you're looking for people who are curious and shown that they know how to use AI to do exceptional things. And you want to bring those people in. So instead of trying to look to where we can cut people off and make it so, oh no, we're going to replace you with AI, it's like, no, no, we can now excel in that. Let's bring in more people so we can expand the business to do better in every aspect instead of just the couple we were focused on in the beginning.
It's such a fascinating thing you bring up, right? People have been so scared about AI putting people out of work. There has never been a technological innovation in the history of humankind that didn't increase the need for a workforce, right? It's never
Right.
happened before. And so you're kind of doubling down on that. AI is not something that's going to take away human jobs. It's more going to be a shift in how we work.
100%. I totally agree with that. And, to be very clear, if you think about, I don't know, a couple years ago when we were talking about AI and it was going to take people's jobs, they were worried about it taking blue collar jobs first. If you remember back, where truthfully, as a software engineer, I was the first job it took.
Yeah.
So we had to figure out as software engineers what we had to pivot to do to continue and doing better. Well, I went from, like I said, working on individual code to like I became an architect, and now here at 10 Federal, I'm a chief AI officer helping everybody in the company become more proficient and better and faster.
I was going to ask that as a fascinating thing. Albert Kim from Storage Pilot AI, one of the innovators in the voice sales agent space, was on the podcast a month ago. And he mentioned how funny it is that there's those areas that AI has not even begun to penetrate. I'm looking at a construction project, a self storage facility out my window that I look at all the time. You're not taking the guy hanging the steel framing up on the steel panels up on the side of the building. AI is not doing that yet. Maybe we get some robotics here sometime down the road. But Albert's point was it's software engineers that have been impacted the most, right? It was the people, it was kind of the last people you would have think would have been impacted are the ones that are impacted the highest. Talk to me a little bit about what that's been like for you and the mind shift you kind of had to go through to really pivot and be doing something completely different than just a couple I mean, you're not that far out of your master's degree from Georgia Tech. I think that was 2021, right? Your life looks very different now as far as the day-to-day as it did the first couple years out of that. Talk to me about that mindset shift and what it's been like to go through it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I used to sit down for the day and I was like, all right, I really need to get this piece of code working to get this driver running so I could see some electrical signals on the scope I'm hooked up to. Like that was my goal for the day. And if I got that done, I celebrated it. Over time, now I'm to the point where it's like, okay, I'm going to spend a couple hours explaining to AI about the entire infrastructure I'm trying to develop. I want to talk to it about the downsides of what I think we're going to run into. I want to ask it what it thinks about my design. And I'm going to spend a couple of hours, sometimes days. I spend days talking to AI to make sure I fully understand the technical infrastructure of what I'm trying to build. And then I go, okay, I think that's right. Do another review. And I get independent reviews from different models on different platforms, trying to find all the holes, right? Edge cases. Once I'm convinced I'm at somewhat of a stable state, I then take multiple AI models and I go, let's go. And I watch them develop it in real time. And I have other models at the same time checking it, other agents, I guess. But I have a certain amount of different models running a whole bunch of different things because they all think about it differently. And so I went from being the individual contributor to being like the manager of a huge team that are specialists in everything all at once.
I can't even begin to tell you as a 52-year-old how mind-boggling it is to me. I'm going to ask a question here because I guess maybe this is what I'm missing. How are people misusing AI? Like, what are they doing that's not leveraging it to its greatest potential?
One of the questions I get all the time from everybody, whether it be a 10 federal, my personal life, anything, they're like, well, I don't know what I can use AI for. And that's a crazy question to me because I think about it opposite. I'm like, how can I use AI to do this better? Right? Like, I don't know how to do a lot of things. I used to go to YouTube University to learn how to fix something. Now I can take a
Yeah.
picture of it and ask AI, here's the tool, here's the model number. What do I need to do to fix it? Because here's the problem. It can diagnose everything. So one of the crazy things is, you know, if you're an expert in something and I have a question, I'm going to go ask the expert. Well, AI is now the expert in everything. So if you ever have a question about anything, just ask AI. And you can say, hey, I'm trying to do X, Y, or Z. What would you suggest I do? And it will tell you. And if you don't even know how to prompt it correctly, this is the one that blows people's mind. If I don't know how to prompt it, I'll ask it, hey, I need to learn what a good prompt would be so that I can adequately get the answer I'm looking for. And here's what I'm trying to say. And it will then give me the prompt that I can turn around and copy and paste and ask it to where it'll give me the information I need to get where I'm trying to go.
My freezer stopped making ice last week. It's making me think of this. And I typed it into AI, right? I'm like, I got a General Electric refrigerator. It's got a door ice maker. What do I got to do? And AI kicks out, you probably have to take a hairdryer to the water line, go into the ice cube maker. I got ice cubes again, right? So it's kind of funny how influential it's become. That would have caused me so much anxiety in my life for so long, having to hear my 14-year-old complain that she couldn't have ice in her water. Really,
Right.
really cool to see that level of advancement that we've seen. To your point, every piece of human information in the history of the world in a place that you can go leverage. I had a chance to be on Noah Star, our data partners at Tract IQ. God bless them. We love them. Unbelievable company at the forefront of using data and helping bring it to self-storage owners. He ran he's actually had two of them now where they're integrating their API with AI to help people underwrite and search deals. I happen to be on with John C. Lindsay, very well-known broker in the industry, a North Carolina native, close to where you guys are at. He's no longer, he moved down to Tampa Bay, he moved even further south. But John mentioned something while I was on there, which is the percentage of people that have even touched AI is still remarkably low, right? The percentage of people that have a paid AI tool is like 1% or less. And the people that are actually like, I just ran out of my ChatGPT. I got to upgrade my ChatGPT subscription. For the first time, I utilized all of my AI space and my Codex space this month. The number of people actually using 100% of what they pay for in AI is like 0.3%. Is that surprising to you, having come out of NVIDIA and been on the front lines of it as you have? Does it surprise you or no?
Not not really. Now I live in the tech world, so everybody I'm around, knows it, uses it because they ask me a question. And I'm like, I don't know, ask AI. So the people that are basically around me are all using it, but in general, it's not that surprising, right? Uh, when the laptop computer first came out, people didn't think that was going to be revolutionary. And now look, I
Nope.
mean, how many people have a desktop computer unless you're a gamer? Like, not many. The cell phone when it first came out, people didn't think that was going to be revolutionary. You had the cord phone with the turn dial. I mean, so no, but what'll happen? And this is what I tell people. They talk about AI bubble and all these things. It's true. There's a lot of money in AI right now, but if we look at it, it's like less than 3% of the population. Wait till the other 90% uses it every day. It's just
Yeah.
going to explode.
Yeah, there's a reason that Microsoft and Dell are still companies that have a really nice stock price, right?
Yeah.
Microsoft at the beginning was not. I'm old enough to remember Microsoft in the '80s. I can remember the day that Bill Gates became a billionaire. Crazy, and that wasn't when 3% of people were using computers, right? That
Right.
happened down the road as the adoption became high. You don't see a world in which AI doesn't become adopted over the vast majority of the population. Is that safe to say?
Unless we have some catastrophic world event, no.
I love it. All right, I want to go back to a question I asked earlier, but I want to dig in a little bit deeper on it from a macro level. What are the things that AI is better at than humans? What are the things that AI that humans are better at and still need to be involved in the process than AI?
So a human in the loop is probably something I still recommend. And so this is what I've told people here is like, hey, I'll help you build anything. I have no problem doing that. But for the first 6 months, a human has to be in the loop to verify everything it was done was perfectly correct. And until we can verify it for a sustained amount of time where there's zero, and I mean zero errors, we will always keep a human in the loop. So, like accounting, I don't want AI to be the one to enter numbers in a ledger. That doesn't make any sense. But if you want me to do all of the other math and bring it to you for final review before you click OK, I'm happy to do that. And then for accounting, we're going to make it extra long, let's say a year. But like in general, I think a human should be in the loop until you have 100% trust in it. And a lot of times it's really hard to make that distinction because humans make errors. And so you have to decide if the AI, if it makes an error, is greater or less than what a human would do on the regular. Because
Yeah.
AI doesn't get tired, AI doesn't need coffee, AI doesn't have a bad day. I mean, it just does.
AI has the wherewithal to go and triple check its work when humans tend to get a little frustrated, right? The World Cup's on. I want to go watch the World Cup game.
Oh,
Sometimes we
yeah.
get a little distracted, right? And so I laugh at this, right? Because people talk about that. Well, AI, you can't trust it. You can't always believe what it says. Well, look, Tract IQ is our data partner. I trust but verify the data that Tract IQ gives me, right? I know they got great data, but the fact is that there are mistakes in anything you do. That's going to be a piece of this puzzle all the way through. I'm going to ask a question a little further than that because this is another question, kind of goes with that, like down to the future. Are we at and I talked about, are we going to get to primary market infill, remote management? A lot of folks are still using AI to handle some minor issues in terms of calls from customers. Someone needs a gate code, somebody needs a payment that's late or whatever, but they're pushing sales calls or high priority. Like if somebody's got a problem with a customer rate increase, they're pushing that to a human. Do you think that's still what should be being done now? Or there's still those operations within a sales cycle that a human needs to be involved in? And if it is still the case that you think humans need to be involved there, is AI going to catch up to that? Is AI going to be able to get to a place where it can handle an irate customer, maybe even better than a human being can?
I'm a little biased, obviously. I think AI is already there. One of the problems, and this is a bigger, thought process, is like if you zoom out, I think in order for the AI to be exceptional in the way where it would suffice for an operator is going to have to own it end to end, right? So there are tools available to where AI agents and voice agents and chatbots and text message and all these things can get access to the data within the company to be able to help the customer do whatever it needs to do. That functionality just has to be built. So I think today it is available. I just don't know if it's been done to the level where an operator would be satisfied that it could replace a human. Now, there's always going to be potentially the need for a human in catastrophic events like a fire, a flood, or an injury or something. But the amount of humans that you potentially need could scale back greatly.
I want to kind of just illuminate what you just said and make sure I understand it correctly. I just forgot the question I was going to ask. Don't even say it happens every once in a while. Um, want to go to kind of talk about the or concept I talked about earlier in storage, right? AI has come in and we've seen I have 4 different companies that have AI voice chat. Is that gonna slow down hiring? Is it gonna stop people from hiring people, regional managers, store managers in the short term? Or are we still at a place where it's not really impact? I mean, I go on LinkedIn and I see open to work from people I've known in the industry for a while. Is that more just a normal function of kind of the downturn of what's going on in the over, we've had 3 years of suppressed rates in the industry? Or are we already seeing AI start to have an impact in terms of companies being able to run more stores without as many employees?
Probably both, to be honest with you. And the best piece of advice I can give is for those people to go learn how to use AI to do anything. Because, like I said, we might hire less regional managers or district managers or property, whatever you want to call them, but we're going to need more people to use AI to build cool things to make your company stand out from the next. So it's probably just like a changing of atmosphere and the jobs that are going to be needed. But I wouldn't say there's going to be a reduction in workforce per se across each company in the industry. I think the workforce will just change in where the people are.
I keep talking about my age, but I'm old enough to remember James Cameron's second movie, which was The Terminator, right? And Sensodyne was the company, and I can't remember the name of the evil thing that it made. But anyway, um, the point of this is that is there like a moral responsibility? And obviously, you were out at NVIDIA, you were kind of in the heart of what's going on. Are people talking about this from the aspect of a moral standing in humanity when we implement AI in this way? Do we have to look at this from a moral standpoint, or is it more like, no, this is a tool and we're just applying it to things we would apply any other tool to?
I guess it depends on what you mean by a moral standpoint, because if you think about AI, each one's a little different. But it's generally just an aggregation of data that provides facts for information you ask for. Um,
Yeah.
if you ask it for an opinion, it might be swayed based on the way you've talked to it in the previous. But in general, it's just like an encyclopedia on your phone that just, regurgitates data that you're asking for. I look at it as a tool. I'm not saying we shouldn't put moral compass guidelines around the overarching thought process, right? We've seen some downside of that with OpenAI and some of the problems they've had. But in general, I just look at it as like a tool, like a hammer to get what you need done, right? You shouldn't hit somebody with a hammer, so don't.
I think you answered my question beautifully, and I appreciate that. I guess the road I was going down is we have these conversations, and I see it on more people my generation and my age than people your age, but they're worried about the moral implications of AI being able to think and be able to make decisions for us. And to your point, that's not really what it is at this point, right? While it's artificial intelligence, it's not really thinking and creating ideas for us. It's more giving us what it is we ask for. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it I haven't seen the point where I ask it a question and then it goes off and gives me something completely unrelated. Typically, it answers the question that I asked. It might give me some background information as to why the decision was made, but in general, it pretty much just does what I ask it.
I'm going to ask a few quick questions as we start to wrap this thing up. First one I'm going to ask, if I start a storage company, and I've asked this question too, it fascinates me. Are we at a point in self storage where it's even possible to go grow a company to the size that 10 Federal's at, right? Some of the top storage companies, Prime, City Line Capital, Merritt Hill, they started in the 2010s, and 15 years later, they're among the top 10, 12 companies in the industry. Is that possible today? And if you were going to start a company, if you didn't go to work for 10 Federal, but you're going to start a company in storage, do you start by hiring high value humans, or do you start by building a bunch of agents?
Whew, tough question. Um, Truthfully, you focus on your business platform and what your goal is, and you direct all energy that direction, right? So you figure out where your niche is in the industry, right? 10 Federal's Unmanned, so we're really focusing on that. If you can find a niche that is attractive to customers in the storage industry, you pick that and you make that your North Star, and then you drive towards that. And whether or not you can build something yourself to make, AI agents and skills and all that to be effective, or you need to hire some high value humans to help you get there, is going to be dependent on the niche. But I absolutely think that a company can be started in any facet of any business right now. And if you pick a North Star and just drive towards it, you can be successful.
Tell me one belief that the storage industry has about AI today that's going to look ridiculous 10 years from now.
Oh boy, I mean, AI changes weekly. Anything I say now could look ridiculous in 2 weeks. I think, I don't discount or discredit the desire of a legacy operator having somebody on site, but maybe that somebody on site can be more than just somebody who sits there for 8 hours and waits for somebody to come in and rent a storage unit. Maybe that person can be utilizing AI while they're there doing some sort of job for the company that they're doing it for to be most effective. So maybe there's some middle ground between like the legacy operator and the unmanned AI forward operator.
Chris Taylor, I want to thank you again for coming and sharing so much, so openly with everything you guys are doing. If somebody wants to get a hold of Chris Taylor for whatever reason, you want to touch base with 10 Federal, if you're interested in having him, of course, they'd be interested in having a conversation about management. If you're looking at unmanned management at your stores, you can reach out to him. He'll connect you with the people there. But I got to say again, so gracious of you to come and spend time. This is a conversation that never gets tiresome for me. You can hook up with him on LinkedIn as well. If you want to get a hold of Chris and for whatever reason have a hard time, reach out to me. I'll try and get you guys connected. I want to thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing you. Hopefully you're going to be out in Las Vegas. I haven't been to an SSA show in a little bit too long. So looking forward to getting out to Vegas. You guys, the SSA show is on track. A little late this year, actually, September 8th to 11th. Labor Day is a little bit later in the year this year. So that Tuesday to Friday is SSA. Once again, at Aria Resort and Casino, I have to say that I'm very excited. They moved to Aria for the 50th anniversary SSA show. They're keeping the show there, which is absolutely beautiful in City Center in Las Vegas. Get registered if you're involved in the self-storage industry. I get on this pulpit every week, and I will continue to. Our involvement is more important today than it ever has been with the legislative and legal challenges facing the industry in states around the country. Your involvement and your support of the SSA is as important as it's ever been. So look forward to seeing everybody out at the Self-Storage Association yearly trade show in Las Vegas in September. He's Christopher Taylor. Let me get this right. I said Chief Intelligence Officer earlier. Technically Chief AI Officer at 10 Federal, so I apologize for massacring your title at the beginning of the show. I'm Thaddeus Campbell. That's it for this week's episode of Storage Unlocked. Look forward to seeing everybody back next week.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.